Bonjour and hello, I'm James, and I'll be your host for this season of the Everyday Forum podcast, an original Stratfest at Home podcast showcasing a sampling of the thought-provoking discussions from the Stratford Festival's 2024 Me Forum. The Stratford Festival's Me Forum is a festival within the festival, designed to enhance and contextualize the performances in the main Stratford Festival season through compelling discussions, small-scale, exciting performances, and engaging multi-sensory events and workshops. Enjoy!
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Pride Week at the Me Forum. My name is Julie Miles, and I'm the Me Forum Director. Not only is it Pride Week at the Forum, but it's also Father's Day, so let's all put our hands together for all the awesome dads out there. So, in celebrating fathers and families, we need to look to the 7 grandfather teachings, which are a set of Anishinaabe guiding principles passed down from generation to generation. These teachings are love, respect, bravery, truth, honesty, humility, and wisdom. The 7 grandfather teachings are guidelines for all of us, especially parents, as we guide and teach our children. As an extension of these teachings, it's our duty as treaty partners to honor the ancestral guardians of this land and its waterways, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wendat, and the Attawandaronk. Today, Indigenous families continue to call this land home and act as its stewards, and this responsibility extends to all of us to take action where we can continue learning about and caring for this land for the families of the future. Our moderator today is one of our festival family, and we are excited to welcome her back in the midst of directing Comedy of Errors for Bard on the Beach in Vancouver. One of this country's leading improvisation artists, her work has garnered accolades on stages from coast to coast. She's an award-winning actor, writer, director, and producer. She's one of a kind, a true national treasure, and lucky for us, our moderator today. Please join me in welcoming to the Me Forum stage, Rebecca Northan.
Wow. Thank you. So many lies. It's my absolute pleasure to now do an intro for this fantastic panel. You may recognize some of them. Colin Mochrie, you probably know from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Yeah.
Thank you.
And Hip Prof.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And Deb McGrath, you might know as the voice of Winners, or the mayor from Little Mosque on the Prairie.
Yes.
Yeah. And Deb also wrote and acted in a short film called Junior's Giant, which is on CBC Gem, which also features, in the lead role, I believe, Colin Mochrie. Yeah. And Kinley, you were recently in Nora Ephron's Love, Loss, and What I Wore.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Play reading in Peterborough.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Welcome. Happy Pride Week. Happy Pride Month. So my goal for this chat today is to just really keep it conversational as much as possible. We'll take the questions at the end. So my first question is, how was your Pride? What'd you guys do?
I mean, for me, it's all going to be usually like everything's concentrated towards the end of the month,
Yeah.
and it'll be basically like within the last week, sort of frantically reaching out to friends, being like, "Do you have plans? And can I join you?" So that's I don't think there's been anything that I've
No, I've
done
been
Friday so far.
touring around the country, entertaining tens of people. That's basically it, and doing events like this every once in a while. We tend to go out and just be us. That's it.
And I decorated the house for Pride.
Did you?
Oh yeah,
Much to the glee of our gardening team. Who are always verklempt when they see the Pride banners and the flags.
That's
Fantastic.
right. Yeah.
I'll tell you one burning question that's been on my mind is, who is the funniest family member?
I'd probably say Deb.
I was gonna say a diplomatic yet I do think true answer, which is that I think we're all like very, very funny in different ways.
True.
That was my second answer.
I think we all have sort of somewhat different styles of sense of humor. There's definitely a lot of overlap within the family, and I definitely inherited sort of bits from both of yours. But yeah, I think we're all
Don't
funny
take
in
our
own way.
bits.
What?
Don't ever take our bits.
I don't know if it's fair to say this, but you might be one of Canada's most famous trans families. Is that true? What's I want to know what's it like? What's it like to be
the pay
publicly?
is fantastic.
Is it? Oh, there's nothing like.
Yeah, we're making a
Nothing
killing
like
off of this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's lovely that we get to talk about our experiences and help people going through the same thing. But it's also kind of weird to be noticed because you love your kid, and you know what I mean. It's like it's the easiest thing in the world. I mean, that's your basic job as a parent, is to love your kid, and that's kind of all we did.
Yeah, it's at the beginning. I want you to know that we made sure that Kinley was interested in publicly coming out. We never would have. Oh, by the way, you're on Entertainment Tonight, which they did do, and she was all for it. I mean, I think that I love spreading the good word. And it was interesting. At breakfast this morning, I was saying, for a long time, I was being asked to meet with trans parents and speak to them about my experience. They were often not in great shape for whatever reason. And I said to Kinley, I'm not getting asked anymore. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's because there are resources and everyone knows someone. It's not like the unicorn anymore. Happy Pride. It's common, especially in this country, I'm proud to say. And so folks don't have to, oh, well, I think Colin Mochrie's wife will talk to you, or I'm not needed anymore, which is great.
Progress.
And gives me more time to do other things.
Yeah, there was definitely like a period of time near the beginning where I think I was thinking about the whole we're a known trans family more often, when it was more when we were doing we went on the ET and the National, and there was also the with the tweet that was heard around Canada and the States. Yes. But now it's I don't know about the two of you, but it's very sort of autopilot now. I don't really think about it that often until actually recently. And you know what? This is great because I don't think I told either of you this. I was at $3 Bill in Toronto. Is anyone from Toronto in here? Anyone know $3 Bill? It's a queer bar that opened at the end of
$3 bill.
Yeah, at the end of last year, and I was there, and someone approached me just saying it means so much to me that you're here, and your experience of coming out with your family really helped me with my family, and just thank you. And so those moments are always nice, but they're sort of they'll come here and there, but it's not a constant. Not a constant experience.
Like it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
You mentioned the tweet that was heard around
wherever.
Canada
Twitter.
and
X.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
when it was Twitter.
And so for those who maybe aren't familiar with it, can you tell us a little bit about that tweet, Colin?
Yeah. There's times I shouldn't be on social media.
You and me both.
Because I accidentally let out the news that Whose Line was coming back. I let out the news that it was ending. And so it was
You're
during...
the Tom Holland of the Whose Line.
I am. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, there you go.
This was during the time, it was around the time of Trump's inauguration. So there, I don't know if you remember, there was, but it was kind of a fractious time everywhere. And we had just told Kinley's grandmothers, who at that point were, I think,
94 and 88.
Yeah, that Kinley was coming out, and they both immediately just accepted it. And I thought this was lovely. So I said, do you mind if I put out this positive message about these two senior citizens who really didn't have an idea of what a trans person was or could be, but just immediately accepted you because of who you are? And she said yes. So I put that out, and then it became a thing because I thought, oh yeah, my friends will see this, and I thought, no,
we did. I saw it.
Oh, good. But then it became, then it kind of came out. But there was I would say overwhelmingly, it was very positive, and there were some, of course,
Idiots.
negative stuff. Where I thought, you know what? I think I can change their minds.
Bless
Which
you.
quickly became block. But there were some people who I felt, there were some people who were just trolls and were just, And then there were some people who I felt, you know what? They're not quite grasping it. I feel maybe if they can get a little education. And so maybe 3% of that kind of worked out. So I thought, well, that's not
pretty
bad
good.
considering.
No, not bad.
But and of course I put my mother referred to the community as the BLT community.
And still does.
Yeah,
Bless her.
There's work to be done.
But it was funny. We had a few people who apparently wanted to introduce us to Jesus to counter what we were saying. And I thought, the irony is, if you knew anything about the history of that human, you'd know that he'd be carrying the freaking flag at the Pride Parade.
Wow.
So don't throw that guy or the Buddha or the others in our faces. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I haven't heard many people using the Buddha as a
Well, I wanted to give the others
Sure, of
their
course,
due.
yeah.
I didn't want it to be all about Jesus.
Yeah.
So can we roll back a little bit and sort of get the story of I realized, Kinley, I'm not sure if I know how old you were when you decided to come out to your folks.
25.
25.
25, yeah.
So like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you flatter me.
Will you tell us a little bit about what that was like leading up to it for you and making the decision to
Oh,
to
Lord.
tell the folks?
So I had been sitting with the question for a while. There was a point that's a whole other story, but a point where I just thought, I think I need to start looking inward and giving gender a glance. I was out as queer and I was starting to like immerse myself in queer spaces where there was a lot of either gender nonconformity or non-binary and trans people. So I was like, I think this is a worthwhile question as someone who's always been like interested in gender nonconformity. And so anyway, there were a lot of questions around that. And then the coming out was like sort of accidental.
Oh.
So I'm going to try and long story short this. We were working on a project at the time, writing something. And my mom had called me and she had an idea for a plot line. And I'm not going to get into it because I don't even really remember the specifics. But basically, I knew that it would no longer work when I inevitably come out and transition. So listen, this was clumsy. The coming out was clumsy. I'm just going to say that. And I was like, I don't think that's going to work for a reason that I can't get into yet, but we will talk about it. Because also, I think I was thinking my dad was out of town. And so I knew like the ideal situation was going to be being able to like, sit them both down like the first time when I came out and talked to both of them. But of course, I mean, you can speak to this side, but of course, when you say something like, oh yeah, there's something I can't talk to you about, that rings, I think, a couple of
It didn't work for me.
bells.
Let's
Yeah.
just
You
say
cannot say that sentence to your mother.
Like
No.
people,
I know, and I know that now.
and people on Instagram, worst day of my life. No, I'm not even liking that. Because if you're saying it's the worst day of your life, I need more information. And then they want people, what's happening? What's going on? No, I will not feed that beast. So I turned to her and I went, no, You're telling me, and you're telling me now.
Well, what I think happened is I think at first you actually were like, okay. And then I think there was a call later that day to be like, okay, listen. And so
Did I give it a think? That good on me.
I might be remembering that wrong, but
That's the story. I
And
gave
so
it a
just
think.
I want to make sure I'm understanding. So the project, there was an idea that came up for a role that you would be playing.
that I was writing
Yeah.
for her,
Yeah.
and she was, I think, queer identifying, but not trans identifying.
yeah.
Okay.
And so then I was like, oh, so yeah, call back. And my mom was like, I don't remember your exact wording, but like, I'm just,
Tell
what,
me
well, what
now.
did you say? Yeah.
I just said you can't do
that. Yeah.
You can't. Don't I'm up here. I need this. I'm not getting it. You left me hanging.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay. And in so many words and long pauses, I said, I'm trans. These are the pronouns I use, and I was using a different name at the time. Actually, I came out with a different name, and that's that. And I mean, it. Well, why don't you take it from here in terms of the reaction on the other end
I
of the
said, okay,
line?
great. Dad's coming home tomorrow. Come over and we'll talk about what you need from us, is basically what I said.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then that night, I so thought I was over the emotion.
Yeah.
That night, because we had no problem with it, I wrote a piece that ended up hilariously being in the Reader's Digest, at which point my mother-in-law, and needless to say, it's all about him, as it should be, to a degree, let's be honest. But in that moment, when my story about Kinley called Mother-Daughter Dresses went in the Reader's Digest, that's when I had credibility after 33 years. And she, you're in the Reader's Digest? I've told everyone. It's fabulous. I'd like some copies. Okay, Mom. But at that point, it was like that night, I felt like she was gone. So it was a hard night because I knew that gender, but I wasn't thinking it then. I was thinking the person I knew was gone to me. And then, which I tell other trans parents, she walked in the door the next day and I went, oh, well, here they all are. And there was no difference at all. And what I said in the piece was, I wasn't invested in her gender. I was invested in her humanity. And she was a kind, decent, bright, interesting person who we're so close to. But that night was a loss. And it was the only loss I felt. And then afterward, it was a rally round. And what do we do? And then the mistakes flew out of our mouths. But, oh, God, the pronouns. Honestly, I swear to God, it was like, and she was so patient with us. And Kinley is very gentle when she has to correct. So she'll just kind of do something like, and oh. So it was her tapping and us going, oh. But yeah, that was it. And I had one other issue with it, and it was the name. I'm glad you didn't say the name because it's a lovely name. Some of you may have it. But
It is.
she named herself after our friend's dog who we called her name and the humper after, because that's all she did for anything, whether she was turned on, whether she was just happy to see you, she would go to town. So, but Kinley's ex-girlfriend, her brother, her sister came out as trans. So her mother was a help to me. And her mother said to me, let the name go. Let it go. So I did. And then this one comes to us in typical fashion and says, I feel bad because it must be awful to name a child and then that name is gone. So I would like you to pitch me a couple of names from our Scottish-Irish background for me to choose from.
36 names, was it?
42.
42, yeah.
And
She's
she
invested.
tried one. She tried Bray, B-R-A-E, from the Scottish, and she loved it, but it wasn't working. And then the name she loved the most, which is very Scottish and great for a first name, is Jones Mochrie. And but she said that you wanted a name at that juncture that identified you as female. And so she went with Kinley, which is the Irish, and we love it. We think it suits her. Don't know where I went down that path, but I went
I
there.
followed you.
Okay,
No, I'm completely with you. But I'm going to throw it over to Colin
Yes.
and just kind of come back around to
Yeah.
you were out of town.
I was out of town, and I
then-
didn't actually come back the next day.
No, I was going to say I didn't think it was the next day.
It was like a couple of weeks.
It was a
I
couple
was
of
away.
weeks.
No,
Yeah,
Maybe not
because I was doing Who's Line.
it wasn't a
Okay,
couple
so
of weeks.
it was a while.
Here,
Was there then a coming out over the phone or over Zoom?
Here
or
is
was it
my
okay?
story.
Yes, let's hear. Oh,
It's going to make it all about him.
yeah. Here we go.
and I'll shorten it a little because my partner Brad Sherwood and I were doing shows in India. Then we flew to Boston, did a show that night. Then the next day flew to LA because we were starting Who's Line. I wasn't feeling great. And so I thought, oh, it's probably just jet lag. But the next morning when I woke up, I felt kind of worse. So I called the office and said, is there a doctor that you guys are associated with that I could sort of see? And so I go to the doctor. He examines me and he goes, you're incredibly dehydrated. So he set me up with an IV. And then he said, has anyone ever mentioned the heart thing to you? I went,
No.
what? No, he said, come into my office. And so he had an ultrasound there. He goes, oh, yeah, a couple of the valves of your heart are leaking. I went, oh. And I said, so what? And he said, well, we don't have to do something until something happens. And I went, well, like what? Like a heart attack? And he goes, no, you'll get plenty of warning before that happens. So I said, yeah, okay. He said, you'll have to get it checked and blah, blah, blah. And then as I'm driving home, I had an allergic reaction to the Band-Aid from so I was covered in hives. And thank God, not my face, because I was shooting. So I get home, I'm itchy, and then Deb calls me, and she goes, our child is transitioning. And I thought, well, there goes my story. Okay. And it was, of course, immediately, it was the same thing, accepting, but I think for both of us, the first thing was a fear of, is she going to be all right now? Is she going to face all the things that we've heard about? And I didn't call her that night because I didn't want to. I just didn't want to overwhelm her. So I just sent a text saying, "Mom told me I love you," and that was it. And then I think we kind of. But it wasn't until I came home that we kind of all got together, and it was like Deb said. It was like, oh, it's just our child in new clothes, basically.
Drinking wine and misgendering.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I want.
That's a title.
It is.
That is a title.
Get the T-shirt.
They'll be at the back.
I did want to speak to that point. The fact that it was a while before you were back, however long that was. We don't have to
At
get
least
to the bottom.
a week, I would say.
I do think you're right, because like I know, like it's a very it's a vulnerable and stressful thing to shit.
It's all right.
It's no matter what you expect on the other side, who you're talking to, it's always, oh my God, I didn't think. It's like with you, I
know.
didn't think.
I thought it was old hat.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to come out to people. And I had already come out once. I'd come out as bisexual, and then, but for me, like coming out as trans was way harder because like when you come out as, sorry, I'm going on a tangent a little bit, but when you come out as like with a sexual orientation, it's kind of like that's the beginning and ending of like the information that like anyone else like needs to know. You just kind of continue like going on, whereas like transition, that's something that like involves other people in a way. They have to like get, well, ideally not have to get on board, but like they're learning new names and pronouns, and then there's like the actual like visual change in how you move through the world. So my like approach to coming out was like I just wanted like to lay out the, like I said to you on the phone, like these are my pronouns, this is my name, like I want to lay out the information, be like, okay, we get to move on now. And so like that period before you came back, and then the idea was when my dad came back, we'd all like get together for a dinner and we'd like really talk it out, because I think it took like that time and in talking to you, and there were some like painful conversations that it was like, oh yeah, there's some like catching up that needs to happen. I've been on Tumblr for 3 years, so I know all about like you know the nuances of transgender what have you, but kind of forgot that like there are going to be some questions. And so then after that point we got together, and then after that was, I'm pretty sure like after that night when we all talked and you came with all your questions, like we were completely fine after that.
Yeah. And you came with videos and information for us to study.
Oh yeah, I thought you were kidding, but
no,
I actually
did.
You did?
Yeah.
Well,
that's amazing.
There are good resources
You
online.
did an educational
An
seminar
educa-
for
yeah,
your
which,
parents.
PowerPoint.
I know it wasn't a slideshow or anything, but like
Wow.
But yeah, we had links to all the information that we would need, which was incredibly helpful. And so she gets that from her mother.
Just for the folks like me, can you explain Tumblr? What do you mean you were on Tumblr? Is that like TikTok?
Okay. Well, it's a social media platform. I'm going to explain this really badly. So it's basically like, oh God, you can like reblog. So it's like a blog, basically. Like you can type out your own thoughts, but you can also like go to other people's blogs and you can reblog things. So you can take like images you like and like, oh, I want that like a part of my thing, or like videos or music or whatever. So you're basically just curating a page, almost like, I guess it's the closest thing to like what's the word I'm looking for?
Multimedia?
Yeah, sure. We'll say that. Yes. Like a diary almost, but you can, have
and so you were there for 3 years already exploring your identity.
Well, it wasn't. At first I was just like, oh, these are pretty pictures. I want to reblog these. But, there's as with any social media, there's a queer contingent. And so then I started becoming like more immersed in learning about it and sort of processing my own, what I was sort of feeling and thinking and figuring out, like trying to get to the bottom of it. Because it was a while before actually reaching like, oh, I'm a woman. It was a lot of like going through non-binary identities, things like that. It was being a man was like very quickly ruled out, which was funny. Like the point where I was like, I need to start asking myself, like I was mentioning this earlier, I need to start asking myself like gender questions. It was almost immediate, like, yeah, we can get rid of man. That's not a part of the equation here. But I resisted identifying as a woman.
Oh,
I didn't think I had permission.
Can I ask what some of those gender questions were that you asked yourself?
What's going on?
An excellent place to start. I have that question every day.
Yeah. Well, because something that I was doing openly at that point was I'd started actually dressing in a gender non-conforming way, sort of blending like masculine and feminine, whatever that means, fashions. And so I was like, so where does this start and end? Like, is it just, do I like dressing this way? Is this something, does this pertain to who I am? And like, yeah, like could I be a woman? And also thinking like, what do I want like my body to look like? Like where do I want to go in terms of like medical transition? Do I want medical transition? So basically a lot of questions like that. And it's a lot of, sort of winding roads and meeting some dead ends and things like that. And yeah, it was eventually a Mitski song that made me. Are there any Mitski fans in the room? There was a
I saw
Mitski
some
song that
hands.
made me realize that I was a woman, and I'm not kidding.
What song?
It's a song called Townie. It's from, I believe, I think it's her first. Is it her first album? No, it's not. Thank you. Okay, so this is when I first became aware of Mitski, because she was opening for a band that I was seeing, and I'd never heard of her. This was years ago, and I was like, I was like, I gotta look her up, and I got really into this one song. And so something about me is like there are certain songs where like I sort of daydream and like I imagine myself like performing it, because like I'm just living my inner fantasy, you know. And this was one of them. And then without my conscious imagining of it, I was picturing myself performing it as a woman, and I was like, oh, that was weird. And then all of a sudden, I was just like flooded with images of being a woman in my 50s.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's a good age.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good age.
Yeah, you're around there, aren't you?
Oh, God bless her. This is why I love her.
But yeah, it was, I mean, that wasn't the absolute final point, but that was definitely the beginning of like, oh, I'm definitely going to hang on to this notion because like it felt good. And so, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Can I
The
make
rest is her
a little
story.
bit? I just want to say that when Kinley, before she came out to us, she came out to some friends. She needed allies. And we were hurt. Well, I won't speak for you, dear, but
Wow.
I was hurt. Because it's Father's Day, I'm giving him one. So I was very hurt because I said, we're so close. We have one child. We travel together. We're a unit. But she said, no matter how close you are to your parents, you have no idea what it's like, I may be paraphrasing, to come to the people that created you and named you and tell them that you're going sideways on that. And I appreciated it. And as I mentioned to the Premier's office several times,
there's a file.
yeah, you knew I was going there. You knew that this is why some, not just trans kids, but queer kids need another adult or friends or someone. They need support around them before they tell their parents. It isn't a betrayal of parents. And my last conversation with his office was, and they know me now. They have a chair for me. Was let some parents come talk to you from that perspective. So it was important for me to say that it's not betraying of the parents. It's actually making them come feeling this is who I am and I know it and I want to share this joy with you. And I just thought that was important to say.
I have a trans cousin who I did not grow up with, but we found each other on social media. I mean, social media is so awful in so many ways. However, my cousin wrote to me and said, I'm really aware of the kinds of things that you share on your Facebook page. And that is why I feel comfortable letting you know that I'm transgendered.
Lovely.
And I was so honored.
Yes.
But in that sense, I thought, oh, thank God for Facebook,
Yeah.
which is the only time I've ever said that.
Exactly.
But it was really
That's
it was really Micah taking stock of the kinds of things that I was sharing, which let him know that I was an ally already.
Yeah.
Which was really important, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I thought that was it.
Thanks, everybody. We're just going to wrap up early. I'm curious to know what the surprises have been along the way in this journey.
For me, like transitioning is always full of surprises. For me, when I came out completely publicly, it was a pretty like sort of singular idea of what my future would look like. And this is going to be kind of hard to explain. But like I pictured like my womanhood looking a very like certain way. The way I would dress, the way I'd move through the world, things like goals that I had. And I feel like I'm never really like at the bottom of it. Like when the question of like would I say like I'm transitioning or I've transitioned? I don't know if I'll ever get to a point where I'd be like, yeah, I've transitioned. I don't know. There's always I think just like new stuff to uncover, like new gender feelings and what have you. And they're not necessarily things that like need to be like that I feel like, oh God, I need to come out again about this new thing. It's more just like a thing like for me. But yeah, I like a few years ago when I was having a sort of like gender like presentation turn when we were preparing for a wedding, I was like, I don't want to wear a dress, I want to wear a jumpsuit or a suit, I think was, and I did, and it was so hot. And yeah, so it's great. I mean, we're humans, right? We're always sort of changing and evolving. So I think that's you think like it's weird because like you can describe your pre-transition self as like being confined, right? Like you're in a box of like normativity where you're, in my case, like expected to be a man and all the very specific rigid lines and boundaries that come with that. And I think there was a certain point where I realized I was sort of unintentionally doing it in the other direction. When I was transitioning, I was finding like I was putting myself in the box of like woman and like adapting like rigid lines that apply to them. I was like, no, I haven't come this far just to toe the line. No.
And the families are transitioning too.
Oh, talk about that.
It evolves. I mean, when Kinley first came to us, I remember and said, I'm bisexual. And we said, okay, great. And just explain to us from your point of view how that looks. And she'd always go, we have to talk. And we'd sit down. And wine
it would
would
always be the
poured.
kitchen.
Yeah, always
we have to go to the
kitchen.
kitchen.
And we'd walk to the wine rack. And then the second time she came out and she said, actually, I don't know. I think you said, I don't know if I'm bi. I think I'm a queer. I think I'm a lesbian.
Oh, yeah, that was after.
Blah,
yeah.
blah, blah. And then she said to us another time, I have to talk. And I said to Colin, dear God, she's killed someone. Like there didn't seem to us to be anything left. However, we do notice an evolution, and it's so beautiful to watch your family, your extended family embrace, because I won't lie, we've got some righties in our family, and I thought, oh, this is going to be with the jokes and the like just total support. And so it evolves. Would you?
Yeah, that was for me the surprising part, how easy it was with the family. And then I realized it's because they all knew Kinley. They knew this person who they loved and had grown up with, and they just kind of accepted, well, she must know what she's doing, and just loved her more. And for me, it was like, I did not see that coming. I didn't think that once you joined the BLTs that that would and it actually gave me some faith in humanity, which I don't often have.
Never has it.
So that was nice, and it did give me. And we've had some experiences where we've come across people who have been resistant to that sort of thing, and not knowing us have brought up something, and I'm going to say Deb will then educate them, but in such a beautiful, gentle way that they actually, we were in Las Vegas, and there was a gentleman having breakfast close to us, and he came over and said, I'm a big fan of Whose Line. We started talking, and then he got into this part, well, it's so nice to talk to you. So these days are so weird, I remember when men were men and women were women. I could see Deb's back go like this. And then she very gently said, well, we have a trans daughter who we love very much, and he was just immediately said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He goes, "No,"
crying.
yeah, and she said, "No, I just want to tell you, trans people have been around forever. You may know some trans people, you just don't know it, and they want everything that we want. They just want to have their lives. They want to be happy." And she said, "I would suggest you learning more about it, maybe educating yourself, going and finding out more about it." And by the end, he was, we almost adopted him. He said, "You know what, I'm going to do," and again, I apologize. He said, "But I am going to look into this. I feel that maybe I was not right." So those little moments make you feel fantastic.
Yeah,
Truly.
and a lot of people will say, "Well, where are they coming from?" And as Colin just said,
Tumblr.
since the I said,
Which is
since
sort
the
of like a
beginning-
blog. It's sort of like a multimedia
right, Rebecca.
blog.
Now
If
you're
you need to
getting
know,
it.
if you need to know, this is your Tumblr expert right here. But it's like I said from the beginning of time, and we should feel sad that these people had wasted lives. They had to hide, and we should hope there's reincarnation and that they are going to get a second shot at it, because they had to hide and pretend. And where are they coming from? What is it? Who is it that just said that it's just political lately, that said they're coming from the chemicals in the water? Oh, I know. I know who. I think we all know who.
Alice Jones.
Who?
Alex?
Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Alex Jones.
Infowar, yeah.
Yeah.
You remind me of a friend of mine. Okay, a fella I dated. A friend of mine. Fella I dated saying to me at one point, in all seriousness, he said, "Oh, there's no queer people where I work."
Wow.
And I said, "Don't you work at RBC?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "The main branch downtown?" "Yeah." How many people you think are in your building?" And he said, "Oh, there's about 1,000. And I said, "I promise you that there are queer people in your building. But what you may want to ask yourself is why you're not aware of it. What's going on in the culture at the place of work that perhaps your employee or your coworkers feel like they need to hide it?"
Yes,
Yeah.
that's excellent.
And that was mind-blowing for him.
Wow.
That didn't go anywhere.
No, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I know, but
Incredible.
isn't that incredible?
Oh,
I thought so.
it's hard
It's just
to-
a lack of knowing.
I saw something. No, there was like a news thing just yesterday where the headline was the elephants at the zoo were doing gay things because queer people were coming to the zoo.
That's
And
amazing.
it's like,
What?
yeah, so I don't know if these gay people were coming in front of the elephants and just going at it. And the elephants thought, "Oh, interesting." But I thought, how? And that's going to become a thing. People who will read that go, "Yeah, that's what happens." The animals will see queer people, and then they'll become queer and we'll have no more animals. It's mind-boggling the way people think. And it's mind-boggling that we're actually still here.
There's a great documentary I highly recommend to you if you haven't already seen it, hosted by Mae Martin, the fabulous Mae Martin. And it's about the BLT community in animals and insects. And it's freaking fascinating. And it's on Gem, I think, right now.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe elephants. I don't know.
Well, let's see.
And maybe elephants. I'm curious, Kinley, if you're able to articulate are there things you wish you had known at an earlier age, or advice that you wish you'd had?
Yeah, of course. I wish. I wish I had good, healthy language to put towards like what I was feeling at the time. And role models. that was sorely lacking in the late 90s and early 2000s. So yes, that's my answer. I can maybe expand on that in some way. Yeah, well, it's just I always like felt like different, like in some way. I saw Rocky Horror when I was 7, and it was intriguing.
We're good parents, I promise.
Yeah. It became one of my instant favorites, and like I didn't really know what was going on, but like even at that time, like the gender nonconformity aspect was intriguing to me. And then it was around puberty age when I started, without like really consciously thinking about it, like started having like gender feelings. Like I was sort of felt like I was caught between boys and girls. Like I didn't belong in either quadrant. With boys, I just I didn't relate to the way like they related to one another, the way like they would express like affection or love, or rather like didn't. I found it like very foreign, and I didn't really get it. And then with girls, like I wanted what they had. Like I wanted like their social circles, their friendships, like they all looked amazing. But I, of course, like for me, it was like, you know, at my pre-transition self, I was like, this is the card I've been dealt. I will never be one of them. And there was also the complicated layer of like half of the girls I was like friends or friendly with, I was also attracted to. So I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all of this. But yeah, I didn't know what any of that meant. So God knows, I would have loved the resources, because God knows I had bad ideas about what trans people were.
When you played Frankenfurter in the summer camp, what was the lyric change?
I'm just a sweet vampire from far, far away Transylvania.
That's the lyric. I don't know the lyrics.
Instead of
I'm just a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania.
So
that's
they
me now.
changed it up.
And there's just a quick tidbit. There's another song in the touch me. I want to be dirty.
Oh, yeah.
That became a game of tag. Catch me. I want to be silly.
It seemed like a wrong choice for
I
summer
was gonna
camp.
say, like they really. I think they would have just been better off picking another show. But we made it work. There were witches and vampires. It was great.
And of course, because we did expose it to her in the early years, that just killed us. We could barely get through watching it.
And I had seen it before we had done the adaptation.
And
I was just thinking, what is this bullshit?
That's some queer counselor trying to like
slip it
in early in a good way of like, let's expand the world. Colin and Deb, what advice do you have for parents, if any?
My general advice to parents always is, you're going to make mistakes. Just deal with it. It's, we read all the books. What to expect when expecting, what to expect after you expected. Were you expecting this? And, we've certainly has a lot of great information on sort of the technical aspect of raising a child. But because we're humans, we made some mistakes. I think at times we were way overprotective because it had taken us a while to get Kinley, and we were very, very protective, and sometimes I think to her detriment, like just doing things like leaving her in her crib and letting her cry herself to sleep, which is horrible. And Deb actually waited till I had gone shopping or something I came back and she was sitting on the stairs weeping. And there was silence from upstairs because our daughter had fallen asleep, as she's supposed to do. But though it was like little things like that, you make a mistake, and there's bigger things you make mistakes with. And all you can do is acknowledge there's a mistake has been made, you say you're sorry, you try to work better, you still love each other. And education in every aspect of learn and love your child, learn what they're doing. And I know there's certainly, I'm sure there's a lot of things that happen in Kinley's life that we will never know about. And I'm fine with that. Because the things we do know about are the things we need to know about, and the things that have made us, I think, a close family. We all have our secrets from each other.
Wait a minute, what?
So, yeah, it's just communication. It's all the cliches about any kind of relationship you have with anyone. It's keeping communication open and try to get past misunderstandings. I went on way too long.
No, you
there.
didn't.
Okay.
Oh, you're talking to me. My advice to parents, do you mean parents of queer kids?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My advice is celebrate them. Don't accept them. Don't say you're safe here. Celebrate it. Because it's a glorious thing when your child has the nerve to tell you something, having no idea how you're going to react. It is cause for celebration. You've got a friend of ours told his mom years ago that he was queer when it was still tough. In fact, so long ago, I think he said, I'm gay. And her response was, I always knew you were special, which I think is so beautiful. But when Kinley came out, we found that our boomer friends would say, how are you doing? And her generation said, congratulations. And so I hold great stock in the generations that come after, that they are going to, there's a reason to party. Ironically, with her coming out, suddenly gender reveal was big. And I thought, oh, well, okay. And yet I get people are excited. We didn't care because we didn't care. So we didn't know. We chose not to know. But Kinley did something. I said, a niece of ours or a cousin of ours did their gender reveal. And I said, oh, it's a boy. And Kinley went, for now. And any kid that's different, not just queer, not any kid that's different is a kid to be celebrated. Because some of the most interesting people I've ever met were the odd ducks, of which I am proud to be in the club.
Do you have advice for young people, Kinley? Because you are a role model now. How does that feel?
Right. That thing that I wanted. Oh,
the thing you wanted. The thing you wanted, you might be.
Oh no. Advice for young people. I would say just find. Oh man, boy, it really is hard knowing that people really might take stock of what you're going to say. Just find the people that will embrace you and hang on to them and cultivate those relationships. And I guess when you're having any of those sorts of hard conversations with people, because I guess, okay, I would say like, for anyone who's experienced it or anyone who's maybe even thinking about it in this room, thinking about like transitioning, I know like the first like year, even two, is like so difficult. You feel so raw and like exposed, and there's a sort of and actually this is also good for the people in their lives to hear as well, because there's a sort of like hypervigilance and there what is perceived as maybe like a real like sort of pushing back and like maybe like lashing out or reacting to something. You may think that's kind of an overreaction. Please just hear. So sorry, now I'm talking to like allies. Please just remember, like, especially at the beginning, like it is such like a sensitive time for trans people, because we see broadly in the world like what's going on, and like there's a fear, and there's also like that wanting so bad to be like recognized for who you are. And so we can get a little touchy. And so back to the people, the youth is, I would say, just from my experience, just remember that when you're coming out to people, that is a scary process. But just try to keep in mind that sometimes people who love you and are well-meaning and will indeed support you just need a little time to catch up and to not like stonewall them. That's just me speaking from my own experience.
That's pretty great. Yeah, it seems to me that we can't understate the courage that it takes to speak a truth like that in the world, and the potential risk.
Yeah.
In terms of losing a family member or alienating someone that you love.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's even a supportive trans parent who loves the idea. As I've said to people, I wouldn't have traded this experience for the world. Selfishly, it taught me a lot about myself, and things that I've done, things that I've said. But the idea of there are some hurtful things too. A lot of trans people refer to their given name as their dead name. And to this day, I have a huge issue with that. I just wish they would think maybe about the people that named them. And I said to Kinley, I can give you an example. And like the 42 names I gave her, I said X name, birth name, given name, because I think, to your point, go gentle with your caregivers, is remember what they're giving up while they fully embrace you. And to have tried so hard in our circumstance to have this baby and to name them, and for the word dead to be attached to any part of that experience from the perspective of a trans mother was very painful. And Kinley was very kind about it. And she recently said that it's still the name it's referred to. So I'd like to have a symposium with the trans people. I just wish that they would, and I'm speaking for myself, I was hurt. Maybe other parents wouldn't be. Just the word dead is a word we all know to be, to attach to the living is an odd thing.
It sounds to me like there's grief wrapped up in that phrase.
Yeah, and there isn't any more regards. I love her name. We look back at our old photo albums where she's dressed in her tutus and her what have you. She took ballet, jazz, tap, blah, blah, blah. And she's standing with her dance partner, her cute little girl that's just standing there like that. And Kinley is, and all of them are. And we thought, how did we not know? And I think it's because she didn't know, but she knew. We look now, and this isn't a stereotype about trans people, but we realize her choices were, we had a son at that point, and into hockey we go, into skating, hated it. And you realize deeply psychologically, she was making choices then that weren't at the forefront. Would you say that's true? Yeah.
Well, you mentioned earlier that at a young age, like having a lack of language to describe the feelings you were having. And I think putting names on things is so powerful once we actually start to expand our vocabulary. Yeah, I think we're probably getting close to time to collect questions. Are they coming?
They're coming.
Where are they?
Oh, they've been surreptitious.
I know. I've been seeing.
I love
really
it. They've been
amazing.
insinuating.
Can I just say
themselves.
this is something I'm also proud about. We were
yes,
talking
please.
about Kinley's horrific reaction to hockey and things like that. But last year, she was her softball league's Rookie of the Year.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Joined a fabulous queer league in Toronto, and she's rocking it.
Yep.
You were asking about surprises earlier. That was a surprise that I joined softball and loved it.
Softball's great.
Queer Softball League in Toronto. Not so Amazon. They're wonderful.
Not So Amazon is the name of your team?
Yeah. No, that's the name of the league.
Oh, the league.
The last year, the name of the team was Switch Hitters.
Yes.
It's really good. They're the most. It's the most fabulous. We go to all the games we can, but
We're the super fans.
yeah, there was a time Kinley was pitching, and someone on the other team goes, "You got this, Kinley." And I thought, who does that in sports? They're so supportive of each other.
Yeah,
It's just amazing.
It's a great league.
Darling.
I love it. Are you ready for some of these questions?
Yes.
All right.
We're starting with a great one.
Nope.
So much of trans discourse is around struggle, but could you speak to trans joy, either as individuals or a family?
Ooh.
I love that. Trans
Beautiful.
joy.
Yeah, great
question.
Nice question.
And none of us want to take
Wait,
it.
none of us have an answer.
There isn't much joy, to be honest. No. Well, I mean, I was in certain terms kind of speaking on that earlier with the surprise question again. Like the joy of like continuing to sort of unpack and like discover yourself is a beautiful thing. And it doesn't always involve a gender journey, but in this case, yeah, I love that. And I think ironically, the thing that brings me joy is that how do I put this into words? Is that I just get to live through like the mundane without having to like really think about how I look and how I move and stuff. I just get to like live now. And like I think that's sort of, you know, we have all like the flashy goals in terms of like wanting to change gender presentation and the ways in which you may like change your body or whatever. But ultimately, it's just kind of, you know, we operate in the same way as anyone else does. We have our day-to-day shit that we have to do. And just, yeah, not having to like, I don't know, doing... getting to do laundry, like, and it's like I'm a woman and you don't think about it, and it's just like that's great. It's just like those it's the simple like joys in life where it's just like I get to do this now more or less fully actualized, and I love that.
I see the joy in her looking in the mirror now. And I don't just mean at her outward beauty, which is considerable. But
Thank you, Mom.
I know I know that she's seeing a happy heart, and that makes me so happy. And being proud, like I will be the person at Starbucks. Yes, I'll have a chai latte with only one hit. I have a trans daughter. I'll just be over that. I
She
swear to
does
God,
fit it into many
I swear to God,
conversations.
I could be taking a final math exam and I'll say I missed number 14 because thinking about my trans daughter.
She's
I
almost
like-
as bad as a vegan.
Or your mother about you.
Yeah.
Your mother will get
That's
into
true.
a cab, say, sorry,
true.
I'm late, but I have a famous son. You may have seen it. Honest to God. And with a Scottish brogue. But I do like spreading the good word, which is why we were so honored and happy to be asked to do this today.
And just the joy of seeing.
I'm so glad.
I was holding on. I had one tear at one point. Just the joy of seeing your child being who they're supposed to be. Yeah.
We all had to have one.
Yeah, I know.
So
I was holding on. I was hoping it was during my heart story.
I cried during your heart story.
And
Thank
he's
you.
fine now, by the way.
Yeah.
No heart problem.
This is a question for Kinley. What would you say is the number one most important or meaningful thing that your parents did to help you in your gender journey? And there's a second part. Is there anything you wish they'd done differently?
okay, well, no. I was actually thinking about this in preparation for the most important thing they did. Easy. So I came out to them. I don't remember how this conversation went, but like they came out to the rest of the family for me. And like, I don't think I've ever actually said this explicitly, but like, thank you so much for doing that. Because like that couldn't have been easy. Must have been maybe not even maybe. I imagine it was very like nerve-wracking. And
I was ready for a fight. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, right. Exactly the reasons I didn't want to do it. So like, I am so super grateful. And it wasn't even like, there wasn't a negotiation involved. I think you offered that up like pretty quickly. I don't even know if I asked you to do it. I don't remember how it went. Do you?
No, I just wanted, to your point earlier, I wanted it out of the way so she could go through this very fragile time, as you said, without having to worry. And we're always gathering the allies. I'm just the mouthpiece. We're always gathering the allies. We wanted, you want the most amount of people to love your kid and to support your kid. So I wanted the family to see we were fine. This was happening. Whatever they thought on their own, keep it to yourself. And we just didn't want her to have to deal. She had enough on her plate. I had already disparaged her chosen coming out.
Yeah, I had such and like, yes, let me say this now. I had such unbelievable gratitude for the two of you doing that. I don't know if I ever actually, I was preoccupied at the time, but thank you, seriously. Doing anything differently? I don't know. It went pretty like after the dust had settled, everything went pretty smoothly. I don't know if I can think of any. Was there things you wish you did differently?
Yeah.
Whoa.
At the beginning, because we were confused, I'm actually happy to be able to say this to potential transparents. We were genuinely confused about exactly what it was, in the sense of the sexuality part versus the identity part. And I remember at one point going, so who are you going to sleep with? And her response was, first of all, none of your business. And secondly, Mom, it has nothing to do with it. It's my identity. And that took, I think we cracked open a second bottle of wine.
Yeah.
It took.
I mean, I knew all that already, but I just wanted the wine.
But I was confused about that. And some other transparents I've spoken to who are confused had the same thing. Nothing has to do with anything has to do with anything. It's all separate. And she's right. It was none of my business, but I wasn't delving. I was confused as to where the fork in the road happened, which I know makes me seem like a moron, but I didn't know.
No, it's a pretty common one, and I think a lot of that has to do with like the way, more so like at that time and before, the way like media had like tied together like gender and sexuality and how they like went together. So
Yes.
it's confused. But I think also just the notion of, well, anyway, the point is they're not related, and that's that.
Pretty much.
That's my point.
Yeah. Okay, you want another question?
Please.
This is a question for Kinley. You mentioned gender feelings. Would you please give a couple of examples of those feelings? And have you experienced negativity in your acting career? How did you address it?
Oh. Okay. Oh God, gender feelings. Well, Jesus. The question of of like, I'm so sorry, everyone. I have ADHD, and so sometimes the wheel, I'm like, which direction do I go in? How do I possibly explain this complicated point that I don't even really understand myself? So I was saying earlier that like when I was starting to like figure out gender feelings, I was thinking maybe I'm non-binary, and just in case anyone in the room is not completely sure what that is, it basically means a gender identity that is either outside or in between or completely separate from the poles of male and female, or man and woman rather. So there can be a lot of different identities attached to this. And we're not going to really go into all of them now because this will take forever, but like there's bigender, there's agender, there's gender fluid, there's a bunch of different specific descriptors that can mean different things in terms of your relationship to gender. And I don't know, I always bump up against, there is, like I was saying earlier, a real vigilance at the beginning about like, is this personality trait of mine being perceived as like male? Is this something I need to eradicate from my being? And that's something that I've relaxed more into now. And I used to think like that the masculine parts, or at least the parts of my personality that I perceive to be masculine, I'm like, does this make me non-binary? I'm like, well, no, that's ridiculous, because there are women who have masculine aspects to their personality. But I do sort of, I don't know, I'm always kind of flirting with the non-binary of it all, which is confusing, which is going to be confusing to a lot of people in this room, because I would also say like I am definitely a woman, and I know that's really flabbergasting, but like yeah, there's something else there. I mean, I don't know, that's sort of like the nature of being trans. I mean, you're already like changing your gender, your sex, and like it's not I don't think that's ever like completely like clean, like moving from one. There's a sort of dichotomy within the trans community of like there's non-binary transgender people, and then there's binary transgender people. And I think like what that means is like the trans men or trans women are examples of like binary transgender people, but I don't really know like what that means anymore, because this is just becoming therapy at this point. Because to me it's like, I don't know, there's nothing really like binary about like any trans experience. Like we literally like moved from one side to another. How the hell is that like anyway? This is what you get when you ask about gender feelings. And then the other question was negativity and acting career. I've been pretty lucky. I don't think there's anything I've bumped up against. I think the worst is just like sometimes in help me out here, what are they called when they set when they breakdowns. Yeah. Sometimes there's like sort of clunky wording, or like just sort of weird descriptions. But I have been lucky in that I don't think I've ever faced anything that's been explicitly problematic or troubling or hurtful. I know you were probably looking for a juicier answer, but I'm sorry I don't have one for you.
That's quite all right. Here's another one. After 65 years, I have begun my transition. Wow. Now, 2.5 years into my journey, how long before you could take a breath and say, this is me? Wow. Beautiful. Yeah.
You're getting the easy ones.
First of all, let me quickly say, this is you now.
Yeah.
And you're going to become more you and more exciting. Did I just ruin your thing?
No. I mean, in a way, it's sort of an impossible question to answer. Only you'll know. Only you'll feel it at the time when you do. There's actually something I didn't say at the beginning, but something that my mom and I always talk about when we do talks like this, and I didn't say it once today, but that I always want to stress whenever I'm talking about transitioning or being trans or whatever. I can only ever really speak for my own experience. I can do my best to put things in general terms, but when it comes to specifics, like this is my own what have you, and I can't speak to anyone else's experience, because everyone will experience things differently, as we all experience life differently. But yeah, I mean, I would say when you stop having to worry about, because I had certain transition goals in mind, things I wanted to do, hormones, certain surgeries, things like that, and those before you have them, it's sort of like, this is a thing, like you never need them but sometimes it feels like you need them a little bit. And so it's like it takes up like energy in your mind, and it's a thing that they're things that make you allow you to like become more you, right? So I think when ADHD, pull it together. When you sort of hit the goalposts that you want, whatever those may be, whatever transition may look like for you, I think pursue them as best you can, and that's of great help when you don't have to have that mental energy used on like, these are the things I still like need to do. But that said, even when you're going through it, just, I don't know, it's easier said than done, but just offer yourself like the grace to be like where you're at. It's definitely easier said than done, and that's probably not advice I really took to myself, but like, you'll still find those moments. I guess that's what I'm ultimately getting at. Like, you'll find like moments where like you don't even think about it, where you're like, oh, I'm just like living as me now. I didn't really come to a concrete answer. It felt a little bit like therapy again. This is the rambling.
But it sounds to like there is no one answer. There is no concrete answer. But the thing that keeps striking me as I listen to you talk is the wonder of having curiosity and courage to investigate self.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to allow yourself the space to evolve. What else is there in the human experience, really? And how amazing for everybody. Yeah. So that we don't calcify in one place. This is who I am. This is who.
Yeah.
Well, there might be more in there. You know, get curious. What a great expression of creativity and humanity. Okay. As the mother of an 8-year-old trans boy who has identified as a boy all through school, how do I protect him while allowing him to live? For example, he has been invited to a sleepover. Do I tell the other parents? He does not want me to tell anyone. Oh, that's...
Sorry,
yeah,
what were you going to say?
That's a big question. I hear parental concern and fear in there.
Yeah, I see a big potential for bullying. If it was my child, Kinley mostly, we've helped out parents whose son, well, I think they now, but since they were a year and a half, I'm a girl. And they're going with it. And now doing the medical necessities. But I would talk to that young person, that boy, and say, here's the reasons why I would love us to tell the parents. Because, as we've discussed earlier, gather your allies. It could prevent the bullying. And I've said this before, but put it in a celebratory way. I'm happy to announce that, just so you know, all the kids know, this is his name, these are his pronouns, and he's coming to this sleepover and blah, blah, blah. And if he won't let you, it's a tough one. I mean, you've got to let them go, I would think. I'm not sure if it's that he doesn't want the kids to know or the parents. That's a challenging one, because I think it would be so lovely if he could, maybe he'll say it himself to them, but yeah, it's a hard one, because I think it's important that the parents know and that they can make this a cool thing. Not that, hey, we're all, holding trans balloons. I don't mean that, but make it, you tell children what to think about this situation and that it's cool and they will think that way. But without knowing, sadly, I feel he's walking into a potential issue. I don't mean to scare the parent, but I would keep trying to find a great way that he feels comfortable telling the parents.
That's where.
Do you disagree? Please give me your perspective.
No, the truth is, I genuinely don't know how to answer this question. It is a very that is a very tricky one, and this is also unfortunately where all three of us lack insight because I didn't come out as a kid.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to go through like this type of thing. Like I was 25 years old. So I'm sorry to whoever this was. I don't know what the answer is. I
will say that our friend whose child wants to come out as a girl, I will say this, which is maybe key to your situation. Every single kid in their class supports them, calls them what they want, comments on the gowns. It's the parents that say the mean things, and not all of them. But boy, like, came dressed as a princess. Yes, he did. I think now it's out there. They know that this is a transitioning happening. He's 7. He's been this way since a year and a half. It's not changing. I think the dad, for the child's safety, was hoping it was a phase because of the safety, because of the surgeries, because of the hormones, etc. But the kids, if they know, I think they'll be on board. If there's some way you could tell them that the kids will probably be rocking it, but you don't want the parent. What are you calling him a guy? Like the parent might feel, there might be a reverse bullying, that the parent might feel that this child's being insulted. Oh, I wish we could.
Yeah. Well.
What?
No, I mean, I don't know if that information was on the card, but is it also a situation where like he's out, but like, well, sorry, I don't. I'm sorry. I don't have.
It's a tough one.
All the information.
Knowledge is power. That's the only thing I could say.
Here's one. Why don't you write a book together?
Oh God.
Okay, next question.
Well, I have had my story in the Reader's Digest.
Oh, in the Reader's Digest.
And I'll tell you, Isabel was that prude. She was that prude of me.
It's I would say check it out. It's an excellent article about the early days of us finding out. And, it's beautifully written.
It's called Mother-Daughter Dresses.
Yeah.
Also, not to plug, if you want to see a positive trans story, I wrote a film that was mentioned that Kinley's in called Junior's Giant, with the great Eric. Thank you. With the great Eric Peterson playing my dad. It's the true story
and it's
of
on
my
CBC
dad.
Gem.
CBC Gem. So if you go on Gem, you'll see Canadian Reflections, and it's there. And it's Kinley and my dad were very close, but my dad did not live to see her come out. So and he had Lewy body dementia, and my dad was a part-time actor, and Eric's wonderful, Kinley's wonderful, and it's a positive trans story. And when I was writing it, we had what's their names? I'm just blanking. They're the people who who are for positive. They give the awards for positive queer stories. GLAAD, thank you. So at the seminar I took with ACTRA, they said, and if anyone's got a piece, send it. We'll read it. And they said, no, it's so nice to read a trans story that isn't about they end up in a dumpster or being harassed or murdered or something. I mean, it's got a darkness to it, but it's not for the reason you think, and it's no one's fault. So, and she's lovely in it.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Mom.
And the film has won 5 awards. I heard
Eric
5.
Peterson has won 8.
Yeah. 8. Oh my goodness, Eric. Okay, this will, I'm going to guess, be our last question, just for time. What strategies have you found helpful in communicating/educating older people about gender identity and transness? Or how have you navigated family who have perhaps not reacted positively?
I have a story.
Oh.
I want to be careful about not using. I used to work somewhere.
Somewhere on the planet.
And there was a certain manager that I had, and we were staying we were staying at, this is more of like a what not to do. We were staying after work, as we often did, because the work had a bar, and so we would stay and have some drinks after, and this was a particularly late night, probably a weekend. And so slowly it was thinning out more and more, and I was left with this manager who I knew was having. So there was another person who I worked with who was non-binary, who used gender neutral pronouns, and this particular manager, she just could not wrap her head around this. And so there was a point where, and so I want to make this really paint the picture for you. She's drunk. I'm drunk. She comes to me and she says, I forget exactly what she said, but it was opening up the question of just like, I'm just having trouble with like the pronouns. Like, what do I do? And I'm sitting there, I'm going, we are both drunk right now. It's like past midnight. Am I really about to engage? And I did. And it ultimately wasn't successful. She was well-meaning, but again, in our cups, and every other sentence out of her mouth was, Kinley, you have to understand, when I was growing up, you were a boy or you were a girl. She said this, I swear to God, at least 20 times throughout our conversation. I was like, listen, we may have a generational difference here, but you're acting like I didn't grow up with this either. Like, I grew up thinking you were a boy, you were a girl. You got to get with it. And it's not even really like, you don't need to understand like the full, and this is actually advice for anyone in the room if you want to pass this on. It doesn't need to be, I'm getting heated. The full like intricacies, like understanding like how does the transgender mind work, and like da-da-da. If someone is asking you to use this name and use the pronouns, that's really like where your role in this ends. Everything else is really, especially in a work environment, is like not your business. So like what needs to happen is just like, yeah, sure, thank you.
And, you know, I will offer, because I've had some conversations with elders in my life who, there's this sort of frustration, which I always wonder if underneath the frustration is fear, their own fear of making a mistake.
Yeah.
And feeling bad about it, and then not, that they don't want to make a mistake. But I mean, there is also, depending on the person, a sort of reluctance to adapt. But what I will say to my elders when they bring up this frustration around names and pronouns is, yes, but when that lady friend of yours got married and took her husband's last name, you didn't say, I'm only going to call you by your maiden name. First of all, let's get rid of that term, maiden name. My God.
Jesus. What?
Do we care about virginity anymore? Really? Honestly. But that I try to sort of like start laying the breadcrumbs in that sense.
Yeah.
Right. Or I've had friends who've changed their names because they just didn't feel like the name their parents gave them sat well.
Yeah.
And there's the transition for you in your own mind of like, oh, that's not Tim, that's Noah. Right. And you just practice and you make mistakes and you say immediately, sorry, made a mistake, and you instantly correct and not make a big production about it.
We had a friend who said the they thing, and she's older than us, and she said, I don't get the they thing. So when I see them, do I say, so how are they today? I went, no, grammar doesn't go out the window. You still, you and me. And trying to explain that they didn't have to put they in substitute you with they in every sentence.
Yeah.
Are they going to have lunch with me today? No, you just say you. You just say you.
If I'm looking at you, we're going to say you.
Yes.
If you're out of the room, I say they, them.
It's really, if it makes it easier, just call everyone they.
Yeah.
It is really.
Yeah, that's true. I think so.
It's saying they instead of she, him it makes it much easier. But another friend of ours said, well, here's the problem I'm having. So we're having a wedding and my daughter is like one of the theys. And then she's bringing a they. And so what do I say? They are coming? Oh, for the love of Christ, what do you mean they are coming? Just, they're coming. But then that means just the one is coming.
No, it doesn't.
Oh my God, what's happening right now? It's crazy. And a friend of ours, a dear friend, when you asked the question about the elderly, maybe you weren't referring to middle boomers, but it's happening with boomers, even the lower ones. And he went, I just don't get it, period. So I said to his wife, who was relaying this information to me, ask me later, I'll tell you who. Oh. And I said, well, would he like some information? Would he like to talk? No, he doesn't want to. So you're saying he doesn't want to know. I can also send him videos. He won't look at them. And I said, you know what? He is one of our best friends. And our daughter is trans. And he's not interested in learning what he doesn't know. Like, to just stay ignorant, you're Googling to see the cat that juggles pizza. So friggin' Google this.
That is a good video, by the way.
I love that one.
That's a good one.
And I think that's an excellent dismount on our chat this morning about trans families. Thank you. Thank you, all three of you. And thank you to all of you who came out today.
And happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
I'm going to pass it back over to Forum Director Julie Miles.
I'll be very quick. So on behalf of everyone here today, thank you all for your openness, your honesty, your advocacy. You're all role models. It's been a real pleasure. So thank you. And I wanted to thank once again our guests, and thank you for being here today with us to celebrate Pride. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. This event was recorded as part of the Me and Forum in front of a live audience in Lazaretus Hall at the Tom Patterson Theatre in Stratford, Ontario, Canada. Be sure to subscribe to keep up with the lively conversations and original performances housed by the Stratford Festival's streaming service, Stratfest at Home. And for making it this far in the episode, we're going to give you a gift. Enjoy 1 month free on Stratfest at Home with promo code FREEMONTH. Visit stratfestathome.ca and enter code FREEMONTH to enjoy 1 month of free streaming content. It takes you, our listeners, to make this possible. It also takes the support of our dear collaborator. Support for the Meehan Forum is generously provided by Kelly and Michael Meehan and the T.R. Meehan Family Foundation. Original score for the Everyday Forum podcast was provided by Hilary Adams. Production support is provided by the film production and distribution team at the Stratford Festival. That is manager Yash Chabria, film editor Chris von Kleist, and director Jenna Dixon. The Meehan Forum team is producing assistants Renata Hansen and James Hyatt, coordinator Mira Henderson, manager Gregory McLaughlin, and director Julie Miles. Special thanks to Michael Adams, Jennifer Lee, Greg Doherty, Harper Charlton, and Kendallin Bishop. Finally, thanks to artistic director Anthony Cimolino and executive director Anita Gaffney. From here in Stratford, Ontario, on the land of the Neutrals and the Anishinaabe, see you next time. Ba Ma Pi.